Okay, we left off with paper 175.1.8. We're going to start with paper 175.1.9 with the Lord speaking in the temple with his farewell address to all the people of Israel.
Furthermore, these self-centered rulers delight in doing their good works so that they will be seen by men. They make broad their phylacteries and enlarge the borders of their official robes. They crave the chief places at the feasts and demand the chief seats in the synagogues. They covet laudatory salutations in the marketplaces and desire to be called rabbi by all men. And even while they seek all this honor from men, they secretly lay hold of widows' houses and take profit from the services of the sacred temple. For a pretense, these hypocrites make long prayers in public and give alms to attract the notice of their fellows. While you should honor your rulers and reverence your teachers, you should call no man father in the spiritual sense, for there is one who is your father, even God. Neither should you seek to lord it over your brethren in the kingdom. Remember, I have taught you that he who would be greatest among you should become the server of all. If you presume to exalt yourselves before God, you will certainly be humbled. But whoso truly humbles himself will surely be exalted. Seek in your daily lives not self-glorification, but the glory of God. Intelligently subordinate your own wills to the will of the Father in heaven.
I love that. So we need to honor those that are in positions of authority over us, but we should not give them our trust. They instead need to be our servants, a server to all, in order to be the greatest. In order to be truly loved by the people as the greatest, they need to show themselves the server of all. And if they exalt themselves or they aren't willing to be, humble, where are they left? Where are you left if you put your trust in them? Disappointed every time. Don't put yourself in a position to be disappointed. As the Lord says later on, be wise as serpents and yet harmless as doves. I mean, do everything we do not for self-glorification or for getting an advantage on our brother and sister, but for the glory of God. Intelligently subordinate your own skills to the will of the Father in heaven. That's an important thing. We need to remember that the Lord wants us to submit ourselves to Him. But if we just cast ourselves in the dirt and say, Lord, I submit myself to you, and we mean it, but we won't do anything, we need to get up out of the dirt and in our heart stay in the dirt. But in our minds, work out what the Lord wants us to do in our own lives to help others. Stay humble. But remember, the Lord wants you to walk forward in faith, sometimes making your own decisions in your lives, in order for Him to guide and direct you in the ways that will take you down the path He wants for you.
Mistake not my words. I bear no malice toward these chief priests and rulers who even now seek my destruction. I have no ill will for these scribes and Pharisees who reject my teachings. I know that many of you believe in secret, and I know you will openly profess your allegiance to the kingdom when my hour comes. But how will your rabbis justify themselves, since they profess to talk with God and then presume to reject and destroy Him who comes to reveal the Father to the worlds? Woe upon you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! You would shut the doors of the kingdom of heaven against sincere men because they happen to be unlearned in the ways of your teaching. You refuse to enter the kingdom and at the same time do everything within your power to prevent all others from entering. You stand with your backs to the doors of salvation and fight with all who would enter therein. Woe upon you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites that you are! For you do indeed encompass land and sea to make one proselyte, and when you have succeeded, you are not content until you have made him twofold worse than he was as a child of the heathen.
Whew, man. Whew, that's a rebuke. So he says, you will encompass land and sea to make one proselyte, meaning you'll seek all over the place for one converter, one to convert. And when you've succeeded, you're not content. You've made him twofold worse than he was as a child of the heathen. So that's where the law of Moses was at that point. The scribes and Pharisees corrupted it so much that if you truly sunk your teeth into it, you'd be worse than if you hadn't even converted in so many ways. Let's move on.
Woe upon you, chief priests and rulers, who lay hold of the property of the poor and demand heavy dues of those who would serve God as they think Moses ordained. You who refuse to show mercy, can you hope for mercy in the worlds to come? Woe upon you, false teachers, blind guides! What can be expected of a nation when the blind lead the blind? They both shall stumble into the pit of destruction. Woe upon you who dissimulate when you take an oath. You are tricksters, since you teach that a man may swear by the temple and break his oath, but that whoso swears by the gold in the temple must remain bound. You are all fools and blind. You are not even consistent in your dishonesty. For which is the greater, the gold or the temple which has supposedly sanctified the gold? You also teach that if a man swears by the altar, it is nothing, but that if one swears by the gift that is upon the altar, then shall he be held as a debtor. Again, are you blind to the truth? For which is the greater, the gift or the altar which sanctifies the gift? How can you justify such hypocrisy and dishonesty in the sight of the God of heaven?
Yeah, basically they were straining in a gnat and swallowing a camel. Basically, they were just being dishonest. Basically, there's no other way to put it. They were being dishonest, and they were justifying their dishonesty in dishonest ways.
Woe upon you, scribes and Pharisees, and all other hypocrites who make sure that they tithe mint, anise, and cumin, and at the same time disregard the weightier matters of the law, faith, mercy, and judgment. Within reason, the one you ought to have done, but not to have left the other undone. You are truly blind guides and dumb teachers. You strain out the gnat and swallow the camel. Woe upon you, scribes, Pharisees, and hypocrites, for you are scrupulous to cleanse the outside of the cup and the platter, but within there remains the filth of extortion, excesses, and deception.
I like that phrase because it kind of points out a little bit of a difference between the New Testament and here. It says, "You strain at the gnat and swallow the camel, but in this case, you strain out the gnat and swallow the camel." So you strain out the little tiny things, but then you swallow the huge thing. Yeah. The thing that's not so important, you taking out, but then you somehow leave the big things that should be taken out in. So, yeah, let's continue on.
You are spiritually blind. Do you not recognize how much better it would be first to cleanse the inside of the cup, and then that which spills over would of itself cleanse the outside? You wicked reprobates, you make the outward performances of your religion to conform with the letter of your interpretation of Moses' law, while your souls are steeped in iniquity and filled with murder. Woe upon all of you who reject truth and spurn mercy. Many of you are like whited sepulchres, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead men's bones and all sorts of uncleanness. Even so, do you who knowingly reject the counsel of God appear outwardly to men as holy and righteous, but inwardly your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and iniquity.
Yeah. Whited sepulchres, meaning they look very beautiful on the outside, but inside they're full of dead men's bones of all sorts of uncleanness. And it's not just because he used that sepulcher analogy, I believe, purposefully, because the dead men's bones inside are the people that they have hurt, the people they have taken advantage of, the people that they have maligned, in many cases murdered. Whether they murdered them really in physical ways or whether they murdered them in the gospel that was being preached, they murdered them in their ability to attend the synagogue, murdered them in the ability to feel like they were justified before God, murdered them in their way to be able to move in spiritual ways forward. It doesn't matter how it's done, they're whited sepulchres filled with dead men's bones. And that comes because of judgment upon others. And I would say, once again, as I've said before, be careful. Do not judge others except by their fruits, by the things that they're actually doing, the things that show fruit. Judge only the fruit. And even then, be careful. Don't judge unless you have to, and only judge the fruit, because the fruit itself is the end result of the doing. And therefore, you can judge the fruit whether it be good or evil. But beware, because if you judge anyone or step in their way, just because you think it's best, you're putting dead men's bones in your sepulcher. How about we leave the sepulcher empty of dead men's bones and just have it be a whited sepulcher that's clean inside? Not judging others, not storing inside it dead men's bones. Sorry, let's continue.
Woe upon you, false guides of a nation! Over yonder have you built a monument to the martyred prophets of old, while you plot to destroy him of whom they spoke. You garnish the tombs of the righteous, and flatter yourselves that had you lived in the days of your fathers, you would not have killed the prophets. And then, in the face of such self-righteous thinking, you make ready to slay him of whom the prophets spoke, the Son of Man. Inasmuch as you do these things, are you witness to yourselves that you are the wicked sons of them who slew the prophets. Go on, then, and fill up the cup of your condemnation to the full.
Wow. Yeah. Let us always remember that when we say to ourselves, well, we wouldn't have done what these people in the past did. You didn't live in the past. Remember that. The world would have been different in the past. And if you go along to get along now, you would have gone along to get along then. And you would have done the same things that they would have done in the past as you do today. Just remember that.
Woe upon you, children of evil! John did truly call you the offspring of vipers. And I ask, how can you escape the judgment that John pronounced upon you? But even now I offer you in my Father's name mercy and forgiveness. Even now I proffer the loving hand of eternal fellowship. My Father has sent you the wise men and the prophets. Some you have persecuted, and others you have killed. Then appeared John, proclaiming the coming of the Son of Man, and him you destroyed after many had believed his teaching. And now you make ready to shed more innocent blood. Do you not comprehend that a terrible day of reckoning will come when the judge of all the earth shall require of this people an accounting for the way they have rejected, persecuted, and destroyed these messengers of heaven? Do you not understand that you must account for all of this righteous blood, from the first prophet killed down to the times of Zechariah, who was slain between the sanctuary and the altar? And if you go on in your evil ways, this accounting may be required of this very generation.
Wow. We'll leave off there, but this is a strong condemnation. But the condemnation falls on us too if we don't remember that we are no different than the past. We can do the same evils, the same wrongs, the same things to our fellow men and women around us. Let us remember. And even to the younger generation, it is our responsibility to give freely and give kindly and gently to all around us. Let us always be that kind of person. Let us always be the one that gives freely and doesn't do it in a selfish manner.